Hey, what's up? Dave with Brazos Valley Strength. And today we're going to be taking a look at all the changes and improvements to the original Avancus Apex Power Shoe. This video is not going to be a total review of the shoe. I already did that. I clearly think that this is the best powerlifting shoe there is. This video is just going to be covering why it's better now. If you want to see my original review and compare and contrast all the other shoes, I'll put a link to it right up here so you can check that out. It's the best shoe there is. It's just better now. So this shoe is going to be releasing tomorrow. If you're watching this video right when I'm releasing it, it should be 24 hours in front of the actual release. So it's coming out on December 1st at noon Central. This video should be out 24 hours ahead of time so you can make your decision. And obviously you do get a 10% discount if you use my code Wolson, right? So that's I think all of the administrative stuff out of the way. But the shoe itself is great. I got to train with a pre-production model a few months ago before heading into nationals. My training at that point really wasn't all that good. I liked the shoe a lot at that point. I thought that all the changes were really, really positive. But after getting to spend more time training in the shoe when my training is actually going better at this point, I think that my feelings on the shoe are significantly more excited right now with these positive changes. So overall, there's 5 of them. I have notes here so I can make sure to cover everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. And I'll generally go in kind of order of importance, I guess, to me, maybe with the first one not being in correct order. So the first thing off the bat, obviously, is the new colors. So there's going to be some limited lines. From my understanding, at least the red and the white and purple colors are going to be one-time runs. Maybe that'll change. Maybe they'll come back. I'm not totally sure. The red ones are the Jamal Browner exclusive line. So these are his shoes, the way that he wanted the color scheme and all of that, but it's his limited edition shoe. But overall, the 4 colors are just the white, black, white and purple, and then the red and black shoe that's the Jamal Browner. I think some of the color schemes are, like in my mind, I think improved. I know some people really liked the bigger logo on the front, with the contrasting color. I kind of like the simpler version, so whether you're into that or not, there's a little bit of a style change just with the name printed on the back. So I think it's a little bit cleaner, but overall that's just a cosmetic thing. But those are the 4 colors that are now going to be available in this line rather than just the white and the black that we had originally. So the biggest thing though, the absolute biggest change that I think is really, really positive for these shoes is the grip. And this was something that I thought was great from the beginning. But I think we all acknowledged that there potentially was a better shoe, the Hyper Vs, that were potentially a little bit grippier. And so I was all about these shoes. I really didn't think that anybody would have any issues, but I think when the original Avancus Apex Powers came out, there were still some people that felt like the Hyper Vs were just clearly better for bench press. And Avancus took that personally. So in the meantime here, since the original launch of the Apex Power Shoe, they have been all about making this grip as good as possible. Like I talk to them like once a week about how much they were trying to just make the rubber, the actual construction of the rubber, a different material and everything, not just the lugs, not just the design, the texture of the shoe, but the rubber itself to become a lot grippier. And they put in a lot of effort to make it happen. And it's really impressive. I think my original thought when putting them on was basically like, yeah, they're good. But I, at my home gym, generally was training on carpet. I would deadlift in the carpet. I really didn't have any other issues, especially with bench press. I bench press generally in heels, so I can get my feet further back. But after spending more time now training in these shoes here, it's really impressive. And I can try to demonstrate this with some of my videos here. But I think in the videos, it's hard to really illustrate how hard I'm trying to make my feet slip. In my original review, you can see that my feet do slide, I think, clearly more in the original Avancus, the Apex Power 1s. And really without a ton of effort. Like I think in that video, I was generally simulating what I felt like normal leg drive would be during a bench press, and still they were sliding some. But in this case, I was making a full out effort with my upper body and lower body to get my feet to slide across the floor. And I guess like reviewing the video very closely at the end, I can see that there's like a small amount of movement with my feet across the ground. In the moment, I can't feel that. I can't feel that my feet are moving. On carpet, it's impossible for me to believe that like any carpet whatsoever that your feet would slide. I mean, even the gym that I train at, that floor occasionally does feel slippery just in general. So this was pretty impressive to me for somebody who I think tends to kind of downplay that feeling that the grip, like that those small changes, that like the Hyper Vs versus something else, that there's that big of a difference. It was really impressive. Now, they've done their testing. Avancus has done their testing, and I think it's like a 1.25% difference. You know, I don't know. I wasn't going to show all that stuff really, because it's like, it doesn't mean a whole lot really, right? The factory testing and all of that, like it's still pretty abstract. But I know in application, this was something that was a surprising change, that the composition of that rubber is different enough that it feels noticeably grippier. And just playing around with these at the gym, like I've had these shoes for a bit now, and letting some other people in the gym just play around with them, I've had universally very, very positive reception to it. And the people who have advanced copies, I think, have been very, very excited. So the grip genuinely is a big deal. Like if your hesitation, I think originally, was that you still were wanting an extremely grippy shoe to bench press, and you kind of felt like this wasn't all the way there, it's there now. I don't think that you could demonstrate that another shoe is grippier than this. I think it's really, really impressive. The second thing that I think is surprisingly big is that there was a small foam insole underneath the material insole that's inside of the shoe. There was a small foam that was inside of there underneath that liner. I think expressed in my original video that I kind of liked that the shoe felt pretty comfortable, kind of felt like a tennis shoe a little bit, but that I didn't think that little small foam liner in there added really anything to the shoe negatively. Like it didn't make the shoe any thicker in my mind, especially standing next to some other shoes, some other flat shoes, very thin shoes, Meld Reeboks or slippers or Vivos. It felt the same to me. And I kind of liked the slight bit of added comfort. I've also never really heard anybody complain about it. But I will say that after they removed that small bit of foam, and I mean, it's millimeters, where, 1 or 2 millimeters worth of foam there, that it does feel noticeably more grounded. That after having trained in these, you feel the floor more. And you feel the shoe, compared to the other one, if you were wearing a normal Avancus Apex 1 versus the 1.5s, it does feel like you're slightly closer to the ground. And I guess as far as like the total range of motion, practically, it's probably nothing. That I really have a hard time believing that would actually make a significant difference in anybody's real ability to lift weights or anything. But when you have it on, it does feel good, like you notice. And so I think that's a really positive change when you put on the shoe and kind of instantly get this slight bit of improved feedback from the floor. I mean, like those are the things that we're looking for, when we're choosing one shoe over the other. We just say like kind of intuitively, I kind of like that feel, So I think for the people that care about that stuff, it clearly is noticeable and it does feel better. And again, I've had some people play around that have the original Avancus and they put them on, they're like, okay, I can tell, kind of right away, even with like broken in Avancus ones. So it's pretty, those two things I think are kind of the biggest to me that actually do fundamentally change the shoe to some degree and fundamentally improve on the shoe. And those two things were the things that I was kind of most aware of heading in, that I was kind of like, yeah, I mean, those are good, but the original shoe was just so good. The original Avancus 1 was just so far in front of everything else that I kind of felt like, it's better, right? It's better, but I don't know that I can strongly recommend people change at this point. But after spending more time in it, it's like, I can tangibly tell the difference. And I guess on that note, the third thing, along with the grip and the performance of the shoe, is that there were complaints, and I acknowledged this in my original video, that the heel on the back of the Avancus kind of came up outside the shoe. And again, this is all cosmetic. It's coming up outside of where your heel sits in the shoe. So your heel is absolutely totally flat. There's no effective heel height, but it's just cosmetically, the sole of the shoe curves up a bit at the back. And this was something that, people expressed concerns about as far as like fitting in within the rules of competition and making sure that your heels looked flat for bench press. I kind of felt like it wasn't that big of a deal. I really haven't seen people really have issues with it, but I also think that maybe that could be because of the awareness around it, that people were aware that there was that kind of cosmetic issue there. And that people who had issues with it, with their heels, maybe in the first place, stayed away from the shoes, right? So there's potentially some selection bias within that being an issue. I'm somebody who bench presses in heels because I like that position that I can get into. I've never been able to bench press in flats. I've had issues in competitions before Avancus that my feet weren't flat in flat shoes. And after bench pressing in these, it's clearly closer that the heel is now flatter. It's much more level even to the ground. If you weren't having issues with it before, I don't think you will at this point. I think people who were previously critical of that aspect of the shoe have been pretty well satisfied. So I think that is, again, kind of a tangible improvement, that if that was a limitation for you or somewhere that you were hesitant before, it seems to be a really, really good step forward. And I think resolves many of the issues that people were worried about within the shoe. So I guess the very last one here is maybe some comfort changes, that the material, the outer material of the shoe is a little bit softer now rather than like a canvas shoe. It's a little bit softer. I don't know what the material is called. And the tongue has been changed. So afterwards, I actually did get some DMs from people that they didn't like the tongue. It was maybe a harder leather on the tongue, but now the tongue is a softer material. And clearly I think it feels better, after even having awareness drawn to that aspect of the shoe. I was like, I see it, but maybe people's feet fit differently in the shoes than mine, but I never had an issue with it. And I don't think most people did. But if you were one of those people who kind of felt uncomfortable with the stiffness, the rigidity of the tongue in the first place, this one's softer. It's better, so that issue I think has been resolved. So overall, those are all the big changes, right? The color, the grip, the internal insole of the shoe, the heel being fixed, and then some comfort things. The shoe is almost the same, So if you were very, very happy with your original shoe, I think that these are just going to be better. And my recommendation, when considering really what I wanted to say in this video, I think that my reaction, like I've expressed a little bit throughout this video, is that I was excited about the new colorways. I was excited about the improvements myself personally, that the shoe is continuing to get better, that Avancus put all this time, money, and effort into making the shoe the best they possibly could. The grip was a big undertaking for them, and delayed being able to restock inventory because they wanted to be able to have a product that was like, even more in line with what they were expecting. And I think that my record's like, look, it's better, but I've been happy before, or I was happy with the original version. But after spending more time training in this, I think it's potentially difficult for me to go back. I think if you're currently happy with your original Avancus Apex 1s, you'll continue to be happy. But if it's me, if it's me watching this video and I'm not associated with the brand and I saw all this stuff, I think that I would try to persuade myself that it's enough to probably matter, right? Like I don't think that people who currently have the shoe and are generally pretty happy, but are people like me that are looking for benefits in the margins, that I think if you have that shoe and you put on this one, I think you'll notice the changes, and I think you'll clearly say that the shoe is a little bit better. And I will say that I have been very excited training in this shoe this week. And my recommendation is that if you can afford it, if you're excited about those things, if the specific things that I mentioned were things that you care about, the shoe is better in all of those ways. So, I know it's difficult sometimes. And even as like somebody who I want my opinion to be valued and credible here, even when I'm associated with the brand like this, that I don't want this just to come off as a sales pitch. Like I'm genuinely excited about all this. But it's small improvements. For me, they matter. For me, it's things that I do think are things that will improve just about everybody's training. If you don't have the ones, these are great. You know, it's getting closer and closer to perfect at this point. So I pretty much guarantee that you'll be happy with them. So hopefully that feels honest enough. It's a really, really good product. And even with the kind of marginal improvements, they're noticeable. So it's a great shoe. So anyway, I think that covers everything that I wanted to say on this shoe. Again, it's cool to see kind of the hype around the shoe. It's cool to see that this brand has been received so well. It's cool on the back end of it to see a brand new company, you know, a company that has existed less than a year, you know, since the first launch. I've been connected with them for a little bit longer than that. But it's cool to see how passionate and driven that they are to even spend the time between the popular release of the ones and saying it's not good enough. It's not good enough for what we want it to be, and delay some of that stuff to really get it to where they want. So, you know, big things coming for sure. I think this is an excellent shoe. I don't think that there's a very close second best. So hopefully you guys enjoy it as well. So it'll be out tomorrow, noon Central, December 1st. Use that code Wolson if you want 10% off. And as always, I appreciate it. And if you did like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.